When you quit your job and give up your 9 to 5 to escape the rat race, there's a whole lot of stuff that you have to start planning for and that you have to start taking care of. On top of that, there's a lot of concerns and worries that you're going to have. One of the things that my wife and I were really concerned about was where we were going to store all of our stuff. That proved to be a challenge the last time we decided to travel the world with our family. The importance of having a good support system and an amazing brother-in-law will really help you a lot through the process. This weekend I spent it with my brother-in-law building a storage unit in his garage for all of our stuff. It's something that he offered to do in exchange for me helping him, paying for it, and giving him my monitor. But it was a trade that I was willing to do. And honestly, it's a great gesture on his behalf because it's something that I just wasn't expecting. And it's something that really helps us out a bunch. I was really surprised when he offered this, but I honestly am really grateful for it. Finding a place to store your stuff is kind of a pain and it can get expensive. Also, when you're not really sure how long you're going to be gone for, it's hard for you to decide how big of a storage unit you should get, how much stuff you should keep, how much stuff you should sell, what you need to get rid of, and what really is worth holding on to pay for storage for. One of the mistakes we made last year when we packed up all our stuff and went to Europe was that we ended up getting rid of too much stuff. And we still ended up spending quite a bit of money storing the stuff that we did have. Storage units are pretty expensive. We were paying almost $250 a month just for a 10 by 10 unit to store our stuff. And we had so much stuff that we still ended up storing a lot of it in my brother-in-law's attic. You probably remember the videos back then of me moving all of those totes back and forth in his attic in the middle of the summer, which was super hot and uncomfortable, and I didn't really want to do that this time around. We were already planning on how to distribute our things and how to get rid of our stuff. It's one of the lessons that my wife and I learned from our previous trip. It was still difficult for us to not accumulate a bunch of stuff when we came back. Just with the things that we stored the first time around and some more stuff that we picked up this year, we have a lot of things. That's what's so difficult about figuring out what you got to do with your stuff when you set out to travel. If you try to get rid of all your stuff, then you end up buying it all back when you get back. But if you decide to keep all of it, you got to pay a bunch to store it. And since we're not completely sure how long we're going to be gone this time, we don't know if we're going to need a storage unit for 6 months or for 3 months or for a year. We were prepared to pay for one, and luckily my brother-in-law was nice enough to build this one for us. So now we'll have the flexibility of being able to leave our stuff as long as we want without having to worry about paying a monthly fee for it, since I paid for the lumber up front. And not many people have a super cool brother-in-law who's going to let you build a storage unit in the back of his garage while you guys go and visit different places in the world. But if you do, definitely take them up on the offer, because storing your stuff, it's such a pain in the ass. Luckily for me and my family now, that's not something that we have to concern ourselves with, which really takes a load off of some of the stress that we were having leading up to our move out date and trying to figure out what the hell we were going to do with all these things. And the other really awesome part about it is the fact that we do have such a good support system and that we have people that care about us enough and deal with our craziness to help us through this kind of thing. And it's something that I'm not necessarily used to having. And I'm very lucky that my wife has such a good family. I didn't grow up with brothers or sisters or extended family members. I grew up with a really small family. Really, it was just my mom, my uncle, and my grandma. And that's pretty much the only people I have. My grandma died when I was younger, and my mom and my uncle are getting older now. So when I was younger and I didn't have family members that I could hang out with or reach out to when I needed them, I substituted that with having friends. And honestly, a lot of my friends when I was younger weren't the best, but it was what I had. And as I got older, I learned to pick and choose people that I kept around in my life. And I always made an effort to never take advantage of people. And I always made an effort to make sure that when I help someone, that I'm not necessarily looking for something in return. And I really think that a lot of that has come around full circle for me. Funny story, a good friend of mine that I've known for a long time, my buddy Paco, that I've known for the last 20 years. He's the guy that choked me out in the jiu-jitsu video that I made. He called me recently telling me that he got the biggest promotion of his life and he just became a hotel manager. And me just being happy for him, congratulated him, and he thanked me. He thanked me for helping him get one of his first real jobs at the hotel that I used to work at. And he thanked me for helping him get some of the valet parking jobs that I kind of helped him land when we were younger and I was working in that industry. It's funny because he gave me some of the credit for his success, which I can't take any of the credit. He worked hard and he earned all of that. But I guess I did help him with the opportunity. And sometimes that's all you need. Is a friend that's willing to give you a hand when you need something and they're not looking for anything in exchange. I guess what I'm trying to get at is that you kind of get what you give. If you put out that positive energy into the universe and you help people, eventually people will help you. I really do believe in the what goes around comes around saying, and I do believe in karma. Even though I tend to be a bit agnostic, leaning to the side of atheists, I think the universe is bigger than us. And I think that many times when you start putting out the things that you want and you start trying to find a way to do the things that you want to do, as long as you've put out good energy, that good energy will come back around to you. And sometimes you might not have the best plan laid out, but things will work itself out. When my mom decided to move us out of Miami, she had nothing. She had $1,500 and her car. We packed it up and put our dog in the back seat, and we drove from Miami to Las Vegas. And she didn't have the best plan laid out, but she knew it would work itself out, and she knew it was the right thing to do. We weren't sure how we were going to make it. I didn't even want to go, but my mom just knew that it was the right move to make. She had talked about it for years. She had tried a few times, and she wasn't successful until she finally was, and she made the move. And she decided to get me out of the trouble that I was in and take me somewhere where I would have an opportunity to improve my life. Things were really hard for us when we moved to Vegas. This was over 20 years ago, but I still remember my mom and I losing that apartment that we had in Las Vegas when we moved there. Funny, it was the first time I actually had my own bedroom, but it didn't last long. We were on the brink of sleeping in our car. I reached out to a few people that I knew. Luckily, at that point, I had a few friends that helped me out. That support system came back around, and a little help was all we needed. Situation's different now. Needing a place to stay isn't a concern anymore, but it was a reality for me a while back. But I still remember that calculated risk that my mom took, and just knowing that everything will work itself out. And that support system and a few good people really helped us out back then. It's good to have good people in your life. And it's good when things feel like they're coming together as they should, especially when you're doing something that feels unsure and uncertain, that feels risky and scary. It's good to have people that have your back and encourage you to actually take the steps and pursue the things that you want to pursue. Some people think we're crazy, but some people think it's pretty cool what we're doing. And I'm sure there's a little bit of both coming from everyone that we talk to that knows us. I'm sure that I could come up with some cliche, corny way to talk about how the support system is like the studs and framing of the building that we built together. I'm not going to do that. But I will say that it was really nice to work with my hands over the weekend and to help build something. There's something about watching all the pieces of something come together from beginning to end. And there's something about starting with a blank slate and just trusting the process and knowing that if you put all the pieces together and you take the time to build something, that it'll turn out exactly as it's supposed to. And I really do think that that's the same feeling that I have when we talk about me quitting my job and us traveling as a family and trying to figure things out along the way. I don't know all the steps. I don't know exactly how everything's going to pan out. I'm doing my best to make sure that I've got a good foundation, and I'm doing my best to make sure that I have the best plan possible. And I'm going to work as hard as I can to make sure that everything comes together as I envision it to. I can't control everything along the way. And I know that there's a lot of things that I probably haven't thought of yet that could happen. And I know that this is probably going to be one of the hardest things that I set out to do. But there's this strange voice or intuition or gut feeling, whatever you want to call it, that keeps telling me I'm doing the right thing. That keeps telling me that if I focus on the plan that I laid out, if I work really hard and I do what it is I need to do in order to make this work, that my desired outcome from this whole thing will be exactly what I want it to be. I got to say that working with my hands all weekend, waking up early, putting in all those hours, lifting heavy stuff, getting my hands dirty, breaking a sweat, felt good. There's a lot of crossover between, I guess, building a house or building a structure as there would be for building a website or building software. At the end of the day, humans like to build. We like to put things together. And we like to use our imagination or our skills to continue to build things. Take a look around us. Look at how far the human race has come in the last few hundred years as far as what we've built for ourselves. All of those things that were built by people who had a vision and had an idea and wanted to do something different. Any good idea is worth pursuing. And not being happy with what you're doing is one of the best motivators that you can have in order for you to set out to pursue the things that you really want. I've got a lot of worries and concerns about how things are going to work out. There's a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt I'm experiencing, and my wife is experiencing as well. But we can't let a little FUD dictate what we do with our lives. If you're too scared to ever take a risk, then you'll never do anything with your life. And most things that are worth having are usually risky, until it's not. And most people who chase their dreams or pursue the things they really want to do are called crazy until they're called geniuses. I'm not saying I'm a genius by any means, and I definitely might be a little bit crazy, but isn't it crazy to also just work the same job and do the same thing your whole life, even when you're not happy doing it? I know that not everything's going to be a cakewalk. I worry about what if I mess up my kids with all this traveling. If you talk to anyone who grew up in the military or moved around a lot, they'll all tell you that they hated having to move around so much when they were kids. We've thought about this, of course. It's something that concerns my wife and I. But there's a few things that make our situation a little unique in that sense. My kids don't attend traditional schools. They've been homeschooled their whole lives. They've made a lot of friends already in different groups as we socialize them. And they've also already had an experience traveling where they've met friends that they still communicate with a year after our travels. Some of those friends will be seen again as we travel and head back to different parts of the world. And they're excited for that. And I think the truth is that all my kids care about is spending time with us. And I think that that will be a big determining factor whether or not we quote unquote mess our kids up by traveling too much. Spending time with our kids and having these experiences is one of the biggest motivators for us to try to do this again. Our family felt the closest it ever did when we were in Europe. I saw my wife and kids more every day in 6 months than it felt like I did in 6 years. I prioritized my relationship with my family and spent almost every day with my wife and kids. This trip will allow us to do that again. Of course, not every single day can be like that, and there will be some days where I'll have to put my head down and work, but you just don't realize how much of your life goes to work when you're working a 9 to 5 until you take a long break from working. I know that a lot of people will say, why don't you just find the job that has a flexible schedule? The reality of a flexible schedule is that it'll never be as flexible as you want it to be. You'll never really truly get to work the hours that you want to work and get to dictate when you're online or offline. My recent job had a fairly flexible schedule. They let me work 410s. They let me log in early or log in late, but there's still meetings that happen every day, and no one's going to allow me to work at my leisure, which is a big reason why I want to give up the 9 to 5 and make money the way I want to make money. And of course, we never want to put our kids in danger as well. We're not traveling to any dangerous locations. I had a few comments where people were telling me to be careful where I travel. These are very calculated risks that we're taking, and we look into the safety of all the locations that we go to, and we make sure that we stay in areas that are safe, and we do a lot of research to make sure that we avoid any areas that might put us and our kids in danger. It's literally one of the things we think about the most when we plan our trips. And the irony is that many people are telling us to be careful of going to dangerous places when the United States is one of the most dangerous places in the world, or at least as far as the Global Peace Index is concerned. We're pretty low on that list here in the US. And some of the places we're going are pretty high on the list and are known for being really safe. Of course, we're going to be aware of pickpocketing and potential petty theft, but we're not going to worry about those things because if we only focus on all the things that could be bad, we won't enjoy the good things. But I'll be vigilant, and I'm always making sure that my kids are safe and I never put them in danger. Another thing I worry about is, what if I can't get a job after this? This economy is rough. You see a lot of stories of developers not being able to get a job. It's a concern. I mentioned it before in a previous video. I'm aware of the risk that I'm taking here by leaving my job and maybe coming back and not being able to get one right away. The truth is that I haven't had issues getting a job. And even though the economy is taking a downturn and it's harder to get a job now, I'm pretty confident that with my network, my skills, and my work experience, that I won't have a problem getting a job if that's what I need to do. This goes right back to having a good support system. I'm a good employee. I'm a hard worker. I'm a good developer. And everyone I've ever worked with has always said I can use them as a reference. And many of the people that I've worked with over the last few years as a software developer have encouraged me to apply for positions that were open on teams that they have been on recently in the last few years. 2 of my last 3 software development jobs have been positions that I found out about from people who I previously worked with. And you can kind of say that goes back to the what goes around comes around thing and the energy that you put out into the universe. If you've ever worked with anyone that you've recommended for a job after you've worked with them, you know that you only really do that if you in fact think that that person is a good employee. Nobody's willing to stick their neck out for someone who they don't trust or believe is worth sticking their neck out for. And I know that there's people that are willing to stick their neck out for me just as I would for them when it comes to getting a job or using someone as a reference. But I know that I can't control the job economy, but that's a reality that I'm willing to face if things don't work out. But like the pieces of this shack that we're putting together, I know that if I keep focusing on building what I want to build, that everything will come together. And hopefully I won't need to come back for a job, because what I'm working on is to avoid having to work a 9 to 5 and rely on being employed to take care of myself and my family. What if I burn out of traveling and doing my own thing? What if I burn out of trying to create content and make YouTube videos and work on startups and all this different stuff that I have in mind? I've learned a lot of things about my burnout, and I really noticed that the things that burn me out are not the coding and the making videos. It's the lack of having freedom of choice from the things that I work on. I want to continue to be creative and work on things that I want to work on. And if I burn out from doing my own thing, then at least it's from me working extra hard to make my own thing work. And at least it won't be from me working on something that I don't care to work on. One last thing that I'm really worried about is burning through our savings. I've calculated a lot of what we could be spending, and I've determined what our budget's going to be. I know how much I can make on YouTube once I start producing enough content with ad revenue and some sponsors. Plus, I have big ideas for a lot of other things that could help with the income. But of course, I'm worried about our savings, and I'm worried about how long we can do this for before we run out of money. Luckily for me, I am already making some form of income online, and I plan to continue to grow that. Pretty ironic that we were coming back home to save money, and in the long run, we realized that that was a mistake and cost us more than we had anticipated. So this time around, we're going to make sure that we account for our savings and our spendings when we're in the US as well as when we're outside of the US. And since it's going to be a couple months of traveling in the US before we head out this time, we've calculated that into our spending, and we're considering that as part of the budget that we have for our travels. Again, we're just being a lot smarter this time around, and worrying about our savings and burning through all the money we have is a real concern. But I'm not too worried, because once we do get to Asia, we'll be saving quite a bit of money, and I plan to continue to make more money online. And making sure that we don't spend too much of our savings while we do this is something that we've considered and have thought about a lot, and we'll be paying close attention to how much we spend, just so that we don't go broke in the process of doing this. I'm not scared of hard work. I'm not scared of failing. I'm not scared of long hours. I'm not scared of the stress. I'm not worried about whether or not I make it. I'm worried about not trying. The what ifs that I worry about aren't the what if I fail or what if this doesn't work out. The what ifs that I worry about are the what if I don't try to do this, are the what if I work a job for the rest of my life that I'm not really happy working. And then I look back and think about the opportunities that I had that I didn't take, the things that I really wanted to pursue that I didn't do because I wanted to be safe. I've been working hard my whole life. Now I'm just going to make sure that I work hard on the things that I want to work on and watch everything all come together at the end, just like I know it will. And if it doesn't work out, at least I know that I'll come back to a good support system and all of our shit. Hell, my brother-in-law even told me that worst comes to worst, we can turn this thing into an apartment and we can live there if we need to. All jokes aside, it's nice to know that even though I didn't grow up with much family and I don't have many friends left, that the family and the friends that I do have now have my back and support me in the decisions I make, because they know that I have the best intentions, and they'll help me out as much as they can in order for me to be able to accomplish the things that I want to do and to help me accomplish my goals, because they know I would do the same for them. All right. With all that said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.